Hi. Sorry, this is my creepy face staring at the camera. I was just having a look. So my eyesight's really bad and the camera's quite far away, so I may or may not see any questions that you ask as they pop up. The idea is that I'll see them, so we will see. So this is the start of my Tuesday tutorials. So every Tuesday evening I'm just going to do a quick nugget of a breakdown of a pose every Tuesday at 5:30 for 5-10 minutes. So feel free to let me know what poses you want to see covered in advance of the session. So today I'm combining a couple of poses. So because they're all related and we transition between the three of them all the time. And especially if you practice a vinyasa class, you'll do them over and over and over again. And I just kind of want to go through some of the common things that I see. I don't want to call them mistakes, but it's just things that I see that have the potential to cause issues at some point down the line, or that just stop us from getting the most out of a pose when we do them. And sometimes, it might be cheating a little bit. And also the aim of these tutorials is to try and help you guys to make the pose work for you. So if you're asking for a particular pose, or if you're watching this live assuming that I can see it, then you can pop questions into the comments, and if I don't see it or don't get to it in time, then I'll answer them later on. I'll get back to you at some point, hopefully during the session. So we're going to start today with Tadasana because that's at the heart of most poses, Tadasana. So it sounds like it's mountain pose, it sounds like it's just sort of standing, but there is a little bit more to it than that. Forward folds and halfway lifts and the transitions between them. So we'll start with Tadasana because, like I said, it's a foundation for a lot of standing poses. So, and I want to talk about how to make it work for our own bodies as well, and that applies to all the poses and everything that I will do during these sessions. So in Tadasana, yeah, we're standing, we're stood at the top of the mat, we are standing, but we're standing with purpose. So we're not just like on the street corner then. We're not just, bumbling around the street. We're stood with purpose. So we're standing up nice and tall. So what we do is we come round down into all four corners of the feet. And actually the weight is a little bit more into the heels. We lift all 10 toes, and then one at a time, if you've got that much control over your toes, it comes with time. Place all 10 toes back down. So all four corners of the foot are rooted to the mat. The knees aren't hyperextended, so we're not locking out the knees. If you've got really bendy knees, it's not great to do that. Just checking that these aren't questions. Thanks, Maria, you are too. So we don't want to overlock the knees because that's just going to cause wear and tear and issues. So if you've got hypermobile knees, I've got knees like a flamingo. So if you've got knees like this, then just be mindful to have a little bend in them. It'll feel like a big bend, but actually it's probably just quite a straight leg. So rooting down into all four corners of the foot. The knees are slightly lifting the kneecaps up into the thighs so that the thighs are engaged. And a very, very slight tuck of the tailbone, very, very gentle, and that just switches on your bum. Lifting up through the top of the head and softening the shoulders away from the ears. And then palms of the hands facing forwards, and all 10 fingers are spread out. So the reason that we spread out all 10 fingers is it's just to bring our awareness all the way down into our hands, because we don't really think about them that often. So it brings our awareness all the way down our arms. So it's really good for our posture. It's easier to breathe when we've stood nice and tall. And every single muscle in our body is working just a little bit. So every muscle pretty much is slightly switched on, because if it wasn't, we'd collapse. So we use it a lot in between, certainly in between during a vinyasa flow. I was going to say something and then I feel like it's quite important. Yes, I remember. So ladies, so often what we get cued in a yoga class is to have our big toes together when we're in Tadasana. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't work for everybody. So women especially, because we've got larger hips, our thighs tend to be on more of an angle. So for some women, that's not comfortable. We need a little bit more space. So you can take your knees shoulder width apart or hip width apart, it doesn't matter. So if Toes together doesn't work for you, don't do it. Take them a little bit wider. And then from here, so usually before we come into a forward fold, what we'll do is we'll often sweep the arms upwards and then fold forwards. So what we want to be mindful that we don't do, that we do a lot, or that I see a lot in yoga, is we sweep the arms up, we find length in the spine. That's a good thing. We want to do that before we fold. But then often when we start to fold, the weight comes into the heels and we really stick our bum out as we fold forwards. That's no good for our hamstrings. So where our hamstrings, at the joint, at the connective part of our hamstrings, so the top and the bottom, it starts to pull on them. So then we end up with a saggy bum as well. So instead, reach the arms up, find length in the spine, really hinging from the hips. So bring the weight into the balls of your feet. Slightly untuck your tailbone. It's not often that I'll say stick your bum out, but you can stick it out a little bit. Folding with a flat back. Now, once you get to about 90 degrees, you'll have no choice but to start to round through the back, unless you're made of rubber. Your back will start to round a little bit. But we don't want to have the bum stuck out, and we don't want to lower down with a round back, because as we've got a round spine, that puts a lot more pressure on our lower back. And if you've got a sore back, it's going to make it worse. If you've got anything going on with the back, if you've got anything going on with the lower back, if you've got any slipped discs, then you don't even have to come all the way down into a forward fold. You can come a little bit higher into a halfway lift. You can rest your hands on a block of any height or a couple of blocks to take a little bit of pressure off, because once the back's flat and we've not got that rounding, there's less pressure on the lower back. We then transition, you might see people holding onto the backs of the legs and folding even deeper. There's nothing wrong with that if you've got that flexibility. But don't pull on the legs. Don't really pull on the legs. And if you're feeling a stretch at the end of your hamstrings, so near your bum, near your sit bones and towards your knees, then that's not the place that we want to feel it. We want to feel it in the belly of the muscle, so in the meat of the muscle. That's the bit that's got more stretch and more giving it. The bits that are connected to the ligaments, that are connected to the bone, they can overstretch, and that's how we can damage ourselves. So from a forward fold, we then often take a halfway lift. So for a halfway lift, slide your fingertips up the shins, roll the shoulder blades back a little bit, so we find a flat back. So something that I often find in forward fold, in halfway lifts, is this. So yeah, we're up halfway, but again, we've got that rounding of the back that's going to put loads of pressure on our lower back. So instead of doing that, take your fingertips onto the shins. They might come onto the floor, depends on your proportions and things. I tend to take mine onto my shins, pressing the fingertips into the shins so that I can draw the shoulder blades down my back, shining the crown of my head forwards. And again, the weight is still in my toes. It's not so much in the heels. I'm not rocking back onto the heels. And then again, forward fold. From there, I'm going to explain how to come out of a forward fold, and I just did it wrong. So from there, how we often come out of forward folds, we have two ways that are commonly taught in yoga. One way has probably made its way into yoga from the world of dance, because lots and lots of yoga teachers seem to be ex-dancers. And that is to roll up. Roll the spine up slowly. Now again, it's not that there's anything wrong with that as such, but we've just talked about how a rounded back can cause more pressure on our lower back. So it's not necessarily brilliant. So in order to make that safe, what we want to do is we want to take a little bend in the knees. We want to tuck the tailbone under and then start to unroll the spine, if that's the method that you're taking. I teach it sometimes, but I always teach it with a tucked tailbone and bent knees, because that takes a little bit of pressure off the lower back as you come up. The other way of coming up out of a forward fold, and if you've got anything going on with your back, any slipped discs, any pain in your lower back, then this is the way that I would recommend, regardless of what the teacher cues, regardless of what I'm cueing that day, I would say to do this. And that is to find a flat back, pull your belly in and rise up with a flat back. So you're missing out that bit of rounding, so you're missing out applying that pressure to your lower back. I think that's everything. I've gone over my 10 minutes anyway. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I will read the questions if you have entered any. I'll try and look less creepy when I loom at the camera next time. If you have any questions, then let me know. This video will be uploaded at some point somewhere, so you'll be able to see it. And let me know if you have any requests for what you would like covering next week. Bye.